Today's guest might be the most well-known fly fishing traveler in the world. He has been chasing new fish species most of his life and now is approaching 500 fly-caught fish species. And today you're going to get his updated best places to travel to in the world so you can dream up your next adventure in fly fishing. This is the Wet Fly Swing podcast where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best resources and tools to prepare, and what you can do to give back the fish species we all love. How's it going? I'm Dave, host of the Wet Fly Swing podcast. I've been fly fishing since I was a little kid. I grew up around a little fly shop and created one of the largest fly fishing podcasts out there. Jeff Currier, artist, smallmouth bass, nut, and our go-to angler for inspiration and travel tips, is going to take us into a big update today on the podcast. You're going to find out why some of his favorite fish to catch are some of the most common fish that we have right here at home. You're going to hear about what he still has to check off his list and how he's going to get to 500 and what his backup plans are and how the show circuit went this way. Plus, you're going to hear what it's like to live in a van during the show season. He's kind of doing this cool thing for a while now, half van while on the show season. And we hear this story about a little cold below zero night out there. So this is a fun one. Great to catch up with Jeff. As always, here we go. Jeff Currier from jeffcurrier.com. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing good, Dave. Nice to hear your voice again.
Yeah. It's been a little while. I mean, I know I've seen you out there. I feel like I follow you out there because you're kind of doing the show circuit and everything. But it's been on the podcast, episode 65. Well, let's see. No, did we do one before? Did we have another one in between there?
No. I think it's been a couple of years. I think I've just done that one with you.
Yeah, just the one. So it's been more than a couple of years. Then we're looking at it's been over a few years. So we're obviously we're pumping out the numbers at the time. I think you were at about 400 species caught on the fly. Has that number changed a little bit since then?
Yeah, we're at 480 now.
So you're still working towards that big 500 mark.
Yeah, and I probably said last time that I didn't know if it would be feasible, but yeah, it's definitely feasible. It probably happen in the next couple of years.
Okay, so you got your species on the. Do you have a plan of which are they going to be the next 20?
I really don't, but that is my priority to do that. I've been so busy the last year that I keep saying I'm going to do it. I haven't, but I'm headed to the Seychelles tomorrow, and I've been there 5 times, so I've caught most of the species I'm likely to run into. But I do have a couple. There's the red-toothed triggerfish that I'll hopefully catch on this trip. He kind of hangs out there in the schools with milkfish. You know, while everybody's fishing the milkfish, if I see the old red tooth, I'll be trying to catch one really bad. Not a big glamorous fish, but a beautiful fish with red teeth. So It's kind of cool looking. Some people call it the vampire trigger. In fact, that's what most of the guides call it.
Gotcha. And is that a fairly challenging fish to find and hook?
Well, last time I was milk fishing was at Providence in 2022, and we saw a few of the fang triggers, but we didn't hit them too hard until like the last day. And then, of course, we thought it was going to be easy, and we didn't catch one. So who knows?
Yeah, right. I circle back around with, the last couple of years. It sounds like you've been real busy. What has been I guess it's show season. Has your year changed now that you're up here in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, still in Wisconsin. Got here in late 221, early 222. And I know we love it here, so we're going to stay here. As far as my life changing, it really hasn't. My big difference, instead of flying out of Jackson Hole or Idaho Falls, I fly out of Duluth. But I go to all the same places and been really busy doing the same thing. It's been great.
Nice. Where have been some of the, like this last couple years, where have you been hitting, or any favorite places new places you've gone to?
Yeah, I've had a couple. Well, just last year I had 2 really new places. So I went to Colombia, and I had never been to Colombia. I've definitely fished both sides of it. I've fished Ecuador and the Galapagos and fished that southern part of Panama, but I had never set foot in Colombia. So I went to the Darien Gap and fished Darien Lodge. That was back in May, and that was a phenomenal trip. It blew me away, actually. And in the fall, I guess late September, early October, I went over and fished Cape York, the west side of Cape York, with Aussie fly fishers, Josh Hutchins, and that was a great trip. And I fished a few new places in the Amazon the last couple of years. I was down at Chingu with the Untamed guys, which is fishing the payara, the big payaras.
Oh, right.
Wasn't a new fish for me, but it was a new place to fish for them. And man, that was a fabulous trip. I was there in November and early December.
Yeah. Are those the vampire fish?
That's right.
Right. God, and you guys had some action out there?
Yeah, it was fabulous. We went after the end of his season because, we were kind of doing some, I don't know, playing around research, you could say. So it was the beginning of the rainy season. But Rodrigo Sales, he's one of the founders of Untamed. He kind of thought that, when the high water starts, when the big rains start, that the Payara run might get better than it actually is during the season. And he was right, because it literally was right to the minute. It started raining when we got there, to the point where we were a little bit worried that the river is starting to blow out and we might be screwed, but it stayed just perfect. It was, it never completely blew out, just got slightly off color, and the Payara were on fire. I
Wow.
mean, they usually get, maybe a half dozen fish a day, with good anglers. And I mean, we were probably getting 10 fish a day, maybe even more than that some days. It was phenomenal, with other nice fish mixed in there as well.
Gotcha. That is really cool. What has been, so yeah, I mean, you've got the 480 now, getting close to 500. Take us back real quick. For those that didn't hear the first episode, or the last episode we did, when did you start thinking about getting some species, these numbers? And I think up there a lot more than many people in the world, most in the world. When did that start?
Yeah, it wasn't really me. It was I've always been catching cool fish my whole life, because I'm fascinated with fish. I studied ichthyology for a while in college, and I just think, every fish has its place, and they're worth taking a good look at. And when I was doing a lot of travel, just starting out, in my early 20s, I was working at the Jack Dennis Fly Shop in Jackson Hole, and it was my customers that were like, they'd come back, come to the store to hear about, whatever trip I was just on, and I'd be like, just, foaming at the mouth, talking about all these cool fish I caught. And they would be like, have you ever kept track of the amount of different species you've caught in a fly rod? And at first I was like, oh, whatever. There's, probably a lot. I probably had, 60 or 70. And they're like, that's amazing. And it went on for a couple of years. And then one day, it was a really slow day in the shop, probably a January day, sitting in a fly shop in Wyoming. And me and my boys were kicking around, and I said, let's start our species list. And they were done in about 10 minutes, and mine just kept going for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And then I was going back to old photos and finding fish I hadn't recorded. And, to be honest with you, Dave, it probably took like 2 years of, keeping that list really organized before I felt like, wow, I think I have everything I've caught now. And I was like, wow, this is well over 200. Then I started, paying attention.
Now, as you get to we've talked about this a little before, but as you get to the close to 500, right, it's not getting easier. Are all the big species that people think of, I mean, those have all been, you've caught those. What's it like when you're getting close to 500 versus, say, when you're at 200?
It's difficult to add fish now. So last year, I probably, even though I went to Colombia for the first time, went to that north part of Australia for the first time, I still think my season overall last year was maybe 10 species. And that's good, just because I went to those oddball places. This year, I do have one already this year, because I started the year in Gabon. And I've been to Gabon before, so it wasn't like it was easy to add species, but I added the brown snapper, which is pretty much only found in that western part of Africa there in the estuaries. So that was cool. And it's important to me to make sure that every year I get at least one species. Now, I haven't even come close to only getting one, but I think in this next 10 years, it's going to get that way. I just feel like if I can't add a species one of these years, that
Yeah, that's it.
that the fun is drying up. So I actually, you said, so I'm sure you've caught all, the easy basic fish
Yeah.
around the world. And I have caught probably 99%, but I do keep a few in my back pocket, just in case I have one of these years where it's come November and I didn't add a new species.
Oh, right.
So, for example, I've never caught a cobia on fly.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a pretty easy one to get if you just go to the right place and target at the right time of year. And I've almost like purposely not caught a cobia. In fact, an example of that would be when I was in Australia this fall. I was with my wife, and we saw some cobia. And she was like, "Oh, you haven't got a cobia. You need to get one." I'm like, "No. Why don't you get it?" So funny things like that. Another one would be like a white crappie. Got plenty of black crappie, but a lot of people don't realize there's different species of crappie. But the white crappie's found more down in the south, and he's very common. I just haven't caught one yet.
Right. That's so you want to make sure even if you don't add a ton of species each year, at least you're getting one new one each year.
Yeah, I'm trying to be real careful about that.
Okay, this is great. So so that's the update on the species list. Let's talk just quickly on the show season. I'm not sure where that's at. I guess is it over now that we're kind of in? Well, when this goes live, it'll be in April. Definitely be over. But have you wrapped things up now?
Yeah, so I did almost all the fly fishing shows this year. I finished up in Denver, would have been 2 weekends ago, and this week I'll be heading to Seychelles hosting for Yellow Dog. I'll actually be over there almost the rest of the month. I don't get back to the 28th of March. But so my big show season's done, but my speaking engagements are not done. Those go throughout the year. And I will have a pretty busy April when I come back. I've got a little tour through Arizona, which is great. I'm hitting all the clubs down there. I say great because number one, it's Arizona, and getting out of Wisconsin in April is not a bad thing. And also I get to do some carp fishing. I have not grass carp fished in probably 2 years. So that'll be my focus on this speaking tour. And then I go back to Oregon towards the end of April to speak at Fin and Firefly Shop, do a full day seminar. And that's good too, because then I get to do some fishing as well. I fish with those guys when I'm out there. Probably go catch a few bull trout, and who knows, whatever they put me on, I'll have a good time.
Right. Nice. So so you do some of those. These are more like where you're doing presentations. What does that? Does that look like similar to what you would do at a show at the fly fishing shows?
Yeah. So the fly fishing shows, you got to be in and out of your room within an hour. So I try to limit my shows to 35 to 40 minutes so you get time for questions. But when I do, speak at a club, they usually want, probably a 45 to 50-minute presentation. And then you got a half hour to do questions answered and stuff. So that's kind of fun. Usually it's a whole event night. So a lot of speakers will go in and they'll tie flies and mingle with the people and then have dinner and do their presentation. I'm not much of a fly tyer. Nobody wants to see Jeff Currier tie a fly. Promise you that. So I'll go in, I'll do art. So whenever I do a speaking engagement for a club, I donate a Cliff fly box with my art on it, and I'll do the art at the club while people watch any fish they want, and then they'll raffle it off that night. So,
cool.
People got to pay me to come speak, so that offsets their expenses a little bit because, sometimes they'll raffle off those boxes for a couple $100.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, definitely your art. Is that something that you've been doing that a while, right? Are you what does your day look like with the art? Is that something that's more on the side, or are you doing a lot more of that?
It's on the side. When I'm at the shows, people see me doing it all day long because that is kind of my gimmick. People can bring their backpack or fly box or whatever they have, and I'll draw on it within 30 minutes to 45 minutes, any fish they want. And I try to do it without looking up any fish. Most people can't fool me. Once in a while, somebody will throw something crazy at me, but if you've caught most of them, you look at them and have them in your hands, usually you can remember enough to do it good.
Oh, that's cool. So you literally, somebody will come up and say, draw me a whatever, skipjack tuna or something like that.
Exactly.
You can draw it just from memory.
Whoop it out. Yep.
That's amazing.
Once in a while I'll screw up a little bit, but if I screw up and I don't notice it till the end, they'll never notice it.
That's right. Well, and remind us again on that. When did your art, it's not a hobby, but when did that start?
Yeah. So, I was always an artist as a kid, but I never thought about being an artiste. But when I did my saltwater book, which would have been about the mid 90s, I illustrated it myself. And when it went to the publisher and got accepted, which I was kind of surprised. I knew how hard it was. They said, let's do all these illustrations you did in black and white and color. And that may entail having to hire somebody. We understand that, but whatever you got to do. And I'm like, hiring's not an option. So I taught myself how to do watercolor. And so I do watercolor with pen and ink over the top, commissions for people. And that's how I illustrated my saltwater book and my warm water book. And then, and that gets expensive. So I don't know, about 15, 20 years ago, one of my boys in the shop, I managed that shop in Jackson for many years, asked if I could draw with a Sharpie on his fly box. And I said, yeah, what do you want? He wanted a muskie. So I drew a muskie on there in about 20 minutes and it looked pretty cool. And I said, you know what? Now I got an art that I can offer to people that don't have a ton of money to do a commission artwork. So like on those fly box, you bring me your own fly box and ask me to do a brown trout, I'm just going to charge you $50.
Oh, wow.
So it's affordable art for everybody. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and we had, glad you mentioned the shop. We had Jack Dennis. He came back on recently too. and we had a good chat with Jack. It's always fun to catch up on things. Yeah, you guys, I mean, you've been there, right? Since the beginning, you were there. You told that story last time about working with Jack, but do you keep up with him at all? Do you see what he's up to?
We talk on the phone maybe once a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hear from him that much.
Yeah, he's a little bit older. Well, he's quite a bit older than you. What's the age difference?
He's quite a bit older. So I'm 59. I turned 60 this year. And Jack has got to be 74 to 77, somewhere in there.
That's right. Cool. And that was back to the Jack Dennis, I guess the Jack Dennis outdoor store, right? You managed that store for a number of years.
Yep. I was in the shop for 23 years and I managed it the last 20 that I was there.
And you probably do you see a ton of people out there that came through your shop as guides and or just worked there? Is there a lot of people you see out there still in the industry?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So when you're in a place that long, and that was a big shop, so our staff every summer would be seven to eight guys in the shop, and then we always had a staff of a dozen to 18 guides. So you figure that 23 years, I had at least 100 different employees. So yeah, it's amazing. Like when I'm doing the show circuit, for instance, when we went down to the Atlanta show, one of my old employees, Greg Allen, he's into, he has a construction business now, and he's in his mid 40s, but he worked for me when he was in his late teens. I mean, we visited them and went fishing for a few days before the Atlanta show. Then during the Atlanta show, a lot of my help over the years always came from the South. So at least 20 different people came by to say hi that worked in the shop at one time. And then after, we went down and fished with some more of them down in Florida that were from down in the Florida area. So yeah, it's been a great niche having all these people around the country to still be friends with. It's really cool.
Let On DeMark Lodge give you the Montana fly fishing experience you deserve. The gin clear waters of the Missouri River offer a world-class experience with one of the finest rainbow trout and brown trout fisheries in the world. Whether you're a seasoned angler or new to the sport, their family of guides will tailor a trip just for you. You can head over to ondemarklodge.com to fish one of the great trout streams in the country.
Well, let's kind of review some of the places you've been to, and talk about that a little bit. Maybe some stories. Or you told a story, I can't remember. I think it was on the first episode where you got ripped out of the van. I can't remember where you were exactly, but some guy at Knife Point, right? You had this crazy story. Have you had any other stories, crazy, or is that still the craziest story you've had out there traveling?
That's probably the only potentially near death story, other than that was in Malawi, by the way.
Yeah.
When Granny and I were hitchhiking across Africa. Yeah, that was bad. The only other one I probably told then too was the tiger. That was in India back in 2008.
Yeah, I don't remember the tiger one. Remind us again on that one. What was that?
I was fishing with Misty Dillon. It was my second trip to India. It was 2008, and we were on the Ram Ganga, which is on the border of Corbett's Tiger National Park there. And we weren't in it though. We were about 50 miles out. It's a long story. I mean, when I really tell that story when I'm drinking beers, it'll take like an hour.
Yeah.
But the short version is I was, fishing on my own. I actually had one of Misty's little guides, but he was way back hanging out with his buddy. So I was quite a ways ahead in the jungle. And I felt that something was stalking me. I kind of had that sixth sense. And the short version is I finally came face to face with a Bengal tiger. Huh. And he was perched on a rock above, hiding in the bushes, and I was about to walk right under him. So,
right.
There's a very good chance that he was going to pounce on me, and I lucked out. I spotted him in time and had a steering contest with him. And that's the one thing you do with cats. If you can keep an eye on them, and they usually don't have the courage to make the move. And,
is that what? So that's it. Keep eye contact.
Yes, and I was lucky that my guide and his friend came up behind me about within 3 or 4 minutes, and tiger stood up and headed back in.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty wild.
A Bengal tiger, so a big animal.
Yeah, it was a giant. I mean, we look at our mountain lions in this country as big cats. This thing is 4 times the size.
Oh, God, that's so good. I mean, it's crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, I've had actually a similar. I'm not sure if I've told this story, but I had it's interesting because the looking, right? They always say you keep eye contact, but I ran into a cougar out on a small stream, basically hiking in the woods, and same thing. Went around the corner, and it was like 50 feet down the road, and I just looked up. I was like, oh wow, there's an adult cougar looking at me. Like within, it could just pounce on me easily. But yeah, I just kept staring at it, right? I didn't take my eyes off, and I slowly backed away and then kind of got away. So Yeah, those moments are scary, aren't they? That you get there and you realize, like, hey, we're just in the animal world, right? We don't have much of a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even describe how scared I was. It was, it wasn't a matter of just being frozen. My vocal cords actually were paralyzed because the first thing I wanted to do is scream to get the attention of my guides that were, yeah, at that time they might have been a quarter mile behind me or whatever, and there was nothing in the tank.
Oh wow, couldn't even scream.
I was trying to scream and nothing came out.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was wild because when those guys finally caught up to me, and it probably was only 2 minutes. Then I just started screaming, like it just came out, and I wasn't screaming anymore. It was like it saved it up. Yeah, it was a close call. That tiger actually went on to take out some people in the next 6 months. It was, according to Misty, who was guiding in that area, that tiger took out a few people, and they finally had to take out the tiger.
Oh
And
wow.
unfortunately, it had two cubs,
Jeez.
and it was damaged. It had like porcupine quills in its paws, which was severely
Oh,
infected.
yeah.
So the theory is that it just couldn't hunt anymore. So it was looking for something really stupid like a human. And I could have been that one. And unfortunately, a few other locals ended up being that one. So I was
Damn.
really lucky. I
Yeah,
was really, really lucky.
that's nuts. Have you had any close call? I'm sure you've been on lots of like not just planes, but bush plane stuff like that. Have you been anything where you came close to or felt that you were scared about crashing in one of those?
The only time I felt like I was going to crash was on a helicopter trip down to New Zealand. And it's funny because you were just asking about Jack Dennis. I
Yeah.
was with Jack.
Oh wow.
And with a couple of his very high paying customers, which were customers / friends. And yeah, we came close to getting the propellers stuck in some of those huge wires that they got, these electric wires that go from mountain to mountain. And the choppers, that's why they never like to fly in bad weather, because they're doing most of their navigation by sight. And yeah, that was a close call. So
Jeez.
yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
if you fish and travel and do crazy things because you thrive on it, you're going to run into some dangerous situations time to time.
Yeah, it's part of it. Have you, the travel stuff, are you still fully stoked on that? Are you still enjoying all the travel as you get older and, kind of all that?
Yeah, I don't think that I'll hitchhike across Africa ever again, that type of caliber stuff. And I don't think I'll ride the buses and trains through India ever again, or, Pakistan or something like that. But I still love the travel. I still love traveling with my wife, but she wants it to be a little more organized than it used to be. We may still wing it, but she'll have an idea where we're going to be staying that night. And if I'm going to be winging it with guides, I'm going to check their motor a little more carefully than I used to. Little things like that. You just get older and you get wiser.
Right. You do. It's interesting. I was at a show and I ran into kind of a survival. I can't remember his name. We're actually going to have him on the podcast because he was amazing. We sat there. He was over in the boats. There was a boat section and I was over there. He was showing me how to start a fire and the essentials you needed. It was like super awesome stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's part of it, right? Do you have all that safety stuff? Are you ready to roll if something happens? You're stuck out there for, a few days or something like that?
Probably not as equipped as the guy you're talking
Yeah.
about. I still wing it there a little bit. I mean, if I'm in cold environment, then I'm going to be able to make a fire somehow. I'm going to have 4 lighters, but when I'm in the tropics, I'm probably a little careless still.
Yeah, no, you'll have to. I'll show you, get you a link to this episode when it comes out because it's going to be good. He's got these. How I've drawn a blank on his name, but it's just even the fire stuff is so simple. He was talking about where you can get dry. Even in the Pacific Northwest where it's super wet.
Yeah.
Going under the tree and getting the bark. Right, there's these places where you can get super dry stuff and start a huge fire and everything. But so, anyways, that's all the safety stuff, which is very important. I wanted to get into today. You've traveled, I think, all over the world. I was hoping we could talk a little high level on places you've been to, and maybe we could break it up by continents. This might be, maybe a challenge, but could we pick some favorite places as we look at maybe all the continents? Have you fished all continents?
I have not fished Antarctica, but yeah, I've fished all the regular.
Are there some fish? Is that a place you could still? Is that you find on your species list there?
I think there's an Antarctic cod, which is a native species found only down in Antarctica. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that they ice fish for them. But you're drilling through 40 feet of ice.
Oh right, you're not. I guess you could still be fly fishing, right? Drill through the ice and then throw your fly around.
Well, if it keeps melting, we might be able to fish for them with a fly.
I know.
It's kind of scary.
It is scary. Yeah, definitely. So, okay, so no Antarctica, but the other 6 you have. Maybe let's go to where we are home. So North America. I mean, obviously there's hundreds of species, whatever the numbers are, but what is one you really love? I know smallmouth bass is one of your favorites. Other than smallmouth bass, what would be another top species that you've caught on your list? And then what number? Do you remember the numbers of all of them?
Well, you're right. Smallies are my favorite. That's why I'm so happy to be, up in northern Wisconsin, because that's what I grew up on. But as far as, other North American favorites, I'll give you 3. So
Okay.
obviously, I mean, I love trout fishing. I haven't done a lot the last couple of years, because I did it that was in my backyard for 34 years. So it's nice to be able to look out my window and go smallie fishing or muskie fishing or pike fishing or walleye fishing. And I love that. When I moved to Wisconsin, the first thing out of people's mouths like, "Oh, you're going for the muskies," but I really wasn't. I was actually coming back for smallies and for the variety. But I have gotten pretty attached to the muskie fishing in the fall here. It's pretty cool, and I guess what I like about it is it's a really good learning curve. Like my first year was 2022, so that was my first fall. I think I caught 4.
Oh, wow.
And that was kind of, I wasn't really fishing hard for him. I might have picked him up while I was pike fishing. So, but that was cool. It got my interest. And then 223, I think I caught 9, and I started focusing on him a little bit. And then 224, I caught over 20.
Wow.
So that's been really fun. And, so there was some learning involved, and I've got pretty good at it. I feel like 20 fish is pretty awesome. And, your third year of fishing to them. And I'm not really getting taught. I mean, in the past, I did do some guide trips with the famous muskie guy, Bill Scherer, over in the eastern part of the state. He's a good friend of mine, and he taught me a lot back in the day when I was lucky to be on guide trips with him. But, I've been kind of working it over with a buddy of mine here, and it's been great. And now I'm into it. So I look forward to next year.
Do you think the muskie is obviously it's a hard fish to catch out of everything you've caught, I guess the normal fish, is it the hardest one, or are there things harder to catch than the muskie?
There's definitely ones that are probably harder. I actually think that it's pretty easy now that I'm here. I just keep my expectations in line. You go muskie fishing, you might get one or 2 in a day. If you're thinking you're going to go out and pulverize them, then you're going to hate the sport and you're done.
Yeah. So it is kind of like a steelhead trip or something like that, or Atlantic
salmon. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to pick something hard, go for grass carp.
Oh, grass carp. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't know how to, they're not that hard for me, but I've been fishing them 25 years. When I started chasing those guys, they kicked my ass. I mean, they were frustrating.
Right. Is that on one of your top North American species?
He is one of my favorites. I absolutely love grass carp. I'm so excited to be. It's funny. I'm leaving to the Seychelles tomorrow, but I'm really excited for when I come home because I'm going down to Arizona to work, and I have the opportunity to grass carp fish.
That's amazing. That's what I love about it. I love about the species stuff, because you're traveling all over the world and stuff, and you can, especially if you have the funds and stuff. But in North America, in the U.S., we have tons of species, right, including the carp, which right here in your backyard are amazing.
Yeah, I'd say one of the funnest things I've been doing since I got to Wisconsin in the summer, being in Wisconsin, is nymphing up the red horse suckers. So, North America has numerous suckers species. I don't know how many we have. I'll make a guess. We got 20 or something. And, it's not a regular fish that you catch on fly rod, but I think anybody that trout fishes a lot has picked up a sucker or 2 in their day, legitimately hooked in the mouth by accident.
But suckers do eat, right? Suckers have to eat, so they will take dry fly, even dry flies, right, at times.
I don't think I've ever caught one on a dry fly, but I've definitely sight nymphed suckers, and it's a process. I think I was down in Arizona. I go to Arizona a lot to speak, and last time I was down there, I wanted to catch the Serrano. What do they call it?
Oh, yeah, the Sonora sucker.
The Sonora sucker, there you go.
Yeah.
Beautiful looking sucker down there, and then while I was catching it, I finally got him. It took 2 trips, so I finally got him. Well, then there's the desert sucker. I saw this weird sucker. I'm like, Mike, get over here. What is that thing? He goes, oh, that's the desert sucker. He goes, I've caught a few, but they're even harder. And I'm like, okay, well, then we're not going anywhere. And 2 days later, I ended up catching 2 of the desert suckers. But we have right here, we got the red horse suckers, and there's 6 different species of red horse sucker.
Oh, wow.
Here in northern Wisconsin. And so far I got the river, I got the gold, and I think the other one it might be the silver or something like that. But it has been a job trying to catch these guys, but I've got maybe 5 now.
Nice.
And they're big. Some of them are huge. If you go to my blog and, Google up Currier Red Horse Sucker, you'll see, a couple of the ones I've got. And they're just, man, awesome fish. Awesome.
And if you said, so do you want to keep, I guess that could be another, if you would say the North America, do you have another favorite North American species you want to add to that list?
Yeah, well, I would definitely say the red horse has become one of my favorites.
Perfect. I love that. And that's one nobody has heard of, or not as many people have heard of. So that's good. All right, let's zip around. This will be fun to kind of go around and see. Let's go to South America. What is this destination in South America do you think the most, or where have you gone to most? Have you been down there quite a bit?
Well, yeah, I've been there a bunch. I've been to the Amazon maybe 15 times. And most of my trips have been to the Brazilian Amazon. But, that's a massive country. So you got Manaus, which is right in the center. And that's where all, Brazil jungle trips start, or, whatever you want to call Amazon trips start. And most people, Americans, go north because of the season. So we want to go get out of the cold. So we go down there in, December, November, December, January, February. And the timing for those trips is you have to go north of Manaus because you're avoiding the rainy season. And south of Manaus during our winter months is the rainy season. So it's pretty much unfishable. For example, I was down there with the Untamed guys, Rodrigo, back in November, and that was the beginning of rainy season. And we just made it. Like, we had great fishing because of the rainy season was starting and the payara were running. But if we went in there 2 weeks later, I think the river would have been too blown out to fish.
Yeah.
So, I love going to Brazil and fishing that part of the Amazon. I really enjoyed, probably my favorite place was going to Chingu and fishing those big payara. So I love peacock bass, but I really love those payaras. They're an awesome fish.
And those are the vampire fish that, what's so cool about, obviously they look amazing, right? But why is that one of those fish to go for?
They're a little harder to catch than other stuff. So, there'd be more like, the steelhead of the Amazon. There's a lot of ways that they feed. Like some days they'll come up and hammer a popper. Not often, but they will. Very hard to hook though, by the way, in a popper because they got those giant teeth. And when they tend to hit a popper, they'll push it away most of the time. But you can catch them. And sometimes it's really weird because they'll shut their mouth and your popper won't even be like hooked into the jaw itself, but it'll be hooked around one of those big teeth. And because when they open their mouth, those teeth still barely clear the top jaw because those teeth come out of the bottom. Your hook will be just hooked around the tooth,
right?
And you still land the fish. Pretty amazing.
That is amazing, right?
And then there's other times where they're not looking up at all, and you have to go deep for them. So, like this last trip, we did a lot of stuff with like 300 grain, jungle tapers. Scientific Angler makes those custom tips. And so you're getting it down deep, 15, 20 feet, and then swinging your fly. So detecting a strike like that can be really tough for some people. It was tough for me until you get a grip on it the second day. And I don't know, I love the challenge. I don't want my fishing to be easy. It's, it's a game we play. If it's an easy game, you get bored. So,
right.
I'm kind of passionate about those guys. And then just being in the Amazon in general, this trip we didn't see a lot of wildlife because I think I was looking in the water too much. But, there's tapirs, there's jaguars, there's various different species of monkeys. And the bird life is unbelievable. I'm a little bit of a bird nerd. A lot of people don't know that about me. But, yeah, I don't try to identify what species is, but I can see a cool bird and just appreciate how cool it is.
No, I love it. Yeah, you don't get down to like the scientific names of birds, but just seeing them out there and seeing new birds is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love birds too as well. This is good. Okay, so we got South America, we got the payara, we got North America. I guess we'll just put, if we had to say one, smallmouth bass, right? We kind of throw that on there. What about, let's move across let's go up to Europe. Have you done a lot in Europe?
I've done a lot in Europe. I've been very fortunate because I fished for Team USA fly fishing team, both the men's, and then long after I retired in 2004, all of a sudden in maybe about 2020 or 18 or whatever. Yeah, it would have been for people over 50. So actually it would have been probably 2016 when I was over 50, got the call. And so I got to go back and fish all the best of Europe again. So I probably fished in Europe 20 times in some of the best waters. And I particularly like, first of all, European grayling. They're different than the Arctic grayling. They're a little smaller, maybe a little more colorful, and way harder to catch. They take dries, but they're really hard to hook because they're smaller. And but the best way to catch them is nymphing, which is not something one of my favorite things to do. But when it comes to European grayling, I'll buckle down and do a little Euro nymphing like everybody does.
Okay, so grayling, cool. What about as you pop down to? Well, you've done a lot in Africa. If you had to pick one species there, what would you be looking at?
Boy, I think everybody would expect me to say tigerfish, but I'm pretty passionate about Nile perch.
Okay, Nile perch, yeah.
And the Niles are much harder to find because, unfortunately, they're one of the giant freshwater fish, and they get netted and caught and eaten just about everywhere they existed. So there's not many good places left. I used to fish in Egypt back in about 2006, 2007, 2010. I think I made 4 trips over there, and it was phenomenal. My first few trips, and that place literally got fished out. And during the time that I was fishing over there, you could still find some here and there, but the big ones like we caught in my first trips on flies, yeah, those guys are gone. But there's still good Nile perch fishing. I got to go over to Cameroon and fish with the African Waters guys, which are great friends of mine. That's who I was with in Gabon back in January. And they do have some rivers that have great Nile perch fishing still. And it's pretty cool because, in Egypt, we're fishing Lake Nasser, which is basically a giant reservoir formed by, a dam on the Nile River. In Cameroon, you're fishing free-flowing rivers and walking rocks and sight fishing, and then doing the night thing with big streamers. It's pretty special. I like that fish.
Yeah.
When you're fishing at night in Cameroon, it's about your surroundings. I mean, it's kind of creepy, dark, and there's hippos in the water that you hear them grunting. They're near you. Which is a dangerous animal. You got the crocodiles. You got the crazy birds chirping at night. It's
Wow.
special. It's special.
Yeah, that is cool. So Cameroon, that is a place. So if you had to say, one place you would go back to, that sounds like that would be one of those places.
There would definitely be one of them. I'd go back to everywhere I've been in Africa.
You would?
Yeah, Africa's my favorite continent. And, I spent a lot of time in Tanzania doing the Tanzania tigers. When my wife and I hitchhiked across Africa, we went to a variety of countries. I guess the one you talked about when we almost got ripped out of the van in Malawi. I don't need to head back to Malawi because the fishing wasn't that good either.
Okay. Where's Malawi? What country? Where is that?
If you Google up Lake Malawi, you'll come up with this amazing lake that's full of those pretty cool cichlids. But it's nestled between Zambia, Tanzania, Mozambique, probably
down
maybe
south.
even another country or two. Yeah, it's in the south part. South Africa. I got a lot of friends there. I'll go down there and yellowfish with those guys and just have a great time. Lesotho would be, it's one of those enclave countries inside South Africa. That's a great place to trout fish and fish for yellowfish, especially the smallmouth yellowfish.
Okay.
I mean, I love it all.
Yeah, you do. No, this is good. So let's wrap this list up here real quick. We got a couple left. Yeah, I mean Asia and Australia. What about Asia? What's your favorite there?
Definitely golden mahseer, hands down. They got a few other species of mahseer there as well. I guess my other favorite would be the chocolate mahseer. So I've fished them pretty extensively in India, a little bit in Nepal, but pretty extensively in India. And then I think maybe my last 2 times I was in the Himalaya was to Bhutan. And I was there in 2014 with a World Wildlife Fund project with one of my good buddies, Mike Dawes. And that was really just trying to find out if the golden mahseer still existed there. And yeah, we found him. It was pretty incredible fishing. And then I was back there last year. So Bryant Dunn, Himalayan Fly Fishing Company, have teamed up with us at Yellow Dog, and we went over and did a film with Chris Patterson and Jim Klug and Bryant, and it was an incredible trip. We did a 12-day float trip, and the fish are still there. The golden mahseer fishing was excellent because of the size fish we caught. We didn't actually catch a ton of golden mahseer, but we got some really big ones. I think most people saw the video that we did there last spring.
Yeah. What was that called?
It's on the Yellow Dog Field Reports.
Okay.
So it was a Yellow Dog film, and they have field reports for all their destinations now. But the chocolate mahseer fishing, something that I hadn't done a lot of. I'd done a little bit of it in Bhutan last time, but this place that we went was unbelievable. And we got chocolates up to 12, maybe even 15 pounds, which I didn't know they got that big based on my first trip, but it was awesome. And those guys, you can catch goldens on dry flies once in a while. I've got a few big ones over the years, but you can consistently catch the chocolates.
The chocolate's good. Okay. And the goldens, do they get a little bit bigger or about the same size?
Golden get way bigger. I've caught goldens up to almost 30 pounds.
Oh.
And I think the record now on fly is 48 pounds, maybe even over 50. One of the Indian friends of mine that I used to fish with in India, Bobby Sapal. I think he's broken his own record several times. He might have a fish that's well in the 50s now.
That's great. Nice. Well, let's wrap up this list real quick here in Australia. You just mentioned it at the start there, but what is the one species there?
Well, I've trout fished there. Tasmania trout fishing is amazing. Fishing the brown trout in the lakes down there is, something that I'm passionate about doing. But this last trip, I'd have to say the saltwater fly fishing I did with Aussie fly fishers and Josh Hutchins up in the north was incredible. I was there to try and knock off my fourth species of perm at the Annick.
Huh.
And I hooked one and I had it on for a while and lost it, which is always a bum when you lose a permit.
Oh, and that doesn't count, right? You have to land it?
Oh yeah, of course. So, I didn't knock off the species, but we had great fishing. And golden trevally, it's an overlooked fish. They're abundant up there in northern Australia. But if you go to the Seychelles and try to catch a golden trevally, you go down to Oman and try to catch a golden trevally, or out of Dubai, they're not easy. So I would have to say that the goldens, there were a lot of them up on the west side of Cape York, and we caught a lot of them. It was great, and it's one of my favorites. They're beautiful and they're fun to catch.
Nice. Good. Okay. What about on these places? Where could you have your website, right? You're still, that's a good place to see a lot of these species, or are there other places that does Yellow Dog, or where could folks see videos or any of that other content?
Yeah, I would say the best place to really see the species and hear a little bit about them and, the Latin names would be my website. So if you type in my name and any weird fish, there's a good chance that it's going to come up to when I caught it. And I still do my blog. My blog is very in depth, and I've written about every single day of fishing still since October of 2009. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm actually behind one day. I got to get caught up. When I came back from Gabon, I pushed the envelope a little too much. I left on December 27th, got back on January 11th, landed in Wisconsin, and just slept in my bed that night. And the next day by noon, my wife and I hopped in the van and started the show circuit. So the last week was my first time home this year.
Oh, it was. You were on the road the whole time. That's right, because we talked about that last time. Yeah, you picked up the van. Has the van been pretty awesome on the show? You've had that now a few years, right?
Yeah, we love that thing. It's heaven. Yeah, so we just got moved out of the van. I mean, when I'm doing the shows, the show puts me up in a hotel Thursday night through Sunday night, and then we're back in the van Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and moving to the next place. But we did 3 weeks. We had I don't know, maybe an 18-day break between the Atlanta show and the Denver show. So, and I had some one-night speaking gigs down in southern Georgia and down in Florida. So we drove the van down to those. So we pretty much camped and fished out of the van for 2 weeks through Florida, and that was really nice.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big Florida guy because it's crowded, but I got to say we had a really nice time.
Yeah. And what is the van again? This is describe the van, what you guys have there.
So it's the Dodge Ram. It's called the Solus Winnebago. So it's it's the smallest van you can get. It's not like the fancy Mercedes Sprinters.
Right.
The Curriers had to do the cheap.
You're right.
But it's
yeah.
paid off really well. It's been awesome.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love and so what you guys do is, maybe describe that. Let's go back to the show. Where does it start? And then talk about your journeys, like where you're going and where you're traveling. So what's the first show of the year?
First show of the year was the Marlboro Fly Fishing Show in Massachusetts.
Is that January?
Yep. I think it was around January 16th. So, I said I flew in on the 11th. I immediately, we got in the van and left on the 12th. And our first stop before going directly to the show, I think you have to set up at the show on the 15th or 16th. We actually drove straight to New Hampshire to see my 83-year-old mom.
Wow.
Who's doing great. And, so we stopped and visited her for a couple of days. Then we drove down and did the show. And then went back up, spent another couple of days with mom because it's only a couple hours from that show. And then we moved on to the New Jersey show, which is, that's a big one. And then from there, I did a one-night speaking thing, on the way down. And then we went to did the Atlanta show. And these are all 3-day shows, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that's another big fly fishing show. That was fabulous. And then from there is when we went down to Florida and kind of did our own thing for, 2 weeks, camped and fished and visited friends and did a really fun gig in Naples for their annual banquet. It was really awesome. I think it's funny. They had me talk about trout fishing the world in Naples.
Huh.
But, most of those people are snowbirds. So
Yeah.
they come from, trouty stuff. So anyway, it was a really good time. got to do some fishing, caught a couple baby tarpon and a whole bunch of snook. It was great.
So that's Florida. And then do you get around to the rest of the shows too, all the way out west?
Yep. So then we eased our way to the Denver show. So we did a week's drive, camping out of the van, and we hit that awful cold front that was ripping through the center of the country, 3 weeks ago. My God,
right.
we had the Curriers are pretty tough, so we don't use our heat in our van very often. Well, it was one below zero.
Wow.
When we were settling in, drinking a glass of wine in the van and cooking dinner. And Granny said, I think we're going to use the heat tonight. We never used it. Let's give it a try. So she gets up there and fires it up. And I'm like, yeah, this is a great idea. Because in the van, it was probably getting down in the 20s. And she fires it up. And within like 10 minutes, things start feeling real snug in there. And then I started smelling the burning.
Oh.
And I'm like, uh-oh, we got some of the heating ducts in the back of the van are covered. People see me at the shows and I sell my coffee mugs and beer steins. So I had 100 of those in our van kind of stacked in the back in cardboard boxes while they were blocking the heating ducts, and we had to turn the heat off. So that was kind of a bummer.
Oh, so you didn't have the heat. So you had to sleep in.
We froze.
You froze.
Yeah, we froze.
That's right. Yeah, 1 below zero is not an easy one to God. So, but you survived. You didn't freeze out there, actually.
Yeah, we survived. I got up probably 6 a.m, fired up the van, and so we used the heat of coming off the engine and fired up the coffee. So we had the 2-burner stove going, both burners going. So you get through it. But we made it to Denver, and Denver was a great show. Normally, I do continue on to do the California show, and in the past, I've been up at the show up in Washington, but the last couple times we took the van over the Sierras was just miserable with weather.
Yeah, I know. The Sierras are tough. That area is not easy driving. We did that too, right? It's tough.
Yeah, so we didn't do it this year. Instead, I've chosen to go host in the Seychelles, which I think is a better, smarter idea. So we were talking about getting smarter as you get older.
Yep.
I think this might be my new gig.
That's it. Cool. So that's the tour, and you're getting around. I'm interested. I was kind of thinking of travel tips, like for people out there. Well, first, let's do this. We're going to take it out here with some travel tips really quick, but let's do a quick shout out. Let's do our casting challenge shout out. This is pretty awesome. We're doing a giveaway of a custom made fly rod. Togiak River Lodge is giving this away. And what we're doing is trying to get some casting tips from all of our best guests. So first we'll give a shout out to Togiak River Lodge. And then what would be your, casting? Like somebody's out there struggling with the cast. What do you tell somebody? You're hosting, right? So does that come up a little bit where you're helping teach a little bit at times?
Oh, absolutely. So most of these guys are going with me on this trip to the Seychelles are, they were clients, now they're friends. And so I can be hard on them because they're close enough friends. And I tell them, number one, they're all pretty qualified, but still practice. So a lot of these guys are like me. They've been, in the cold all winter. And even though their last cast in October was, a great cast and their double haul was looking pretty good, I guarantee in 4 months that they lost some of that. And we're going to get off the plane the Seychelles with a little jet lag and the wind's going to be blowing. And, if they haven't practiced a little bit beforehand, those first 2 days, they're going to kind of suck. And it's going to cost you a couple fish. So practice. And, I mentioned the double haul there.
Yep.
That's something everybody has to learn. I know I do. I teach the double haul at the big shows and I'll have, 50 people or 200 people, depending on the show, standing around the casting pond. And I'm talking the double haul. And I know there are people out there that are looking at me that have been fly fishing for 40 years, and they still don't know the double haul. And they're convinced they don't need it, but you do. It helps a lot. And you don't just need it for saltwater. It helps you with your freshwater fishing as well. It's essential.
It is. Yeah, the double haul is key. And that's probably just like anything, right? Either get an instructor if you can, right? Get a casting instructor or get a guide trip, right? Get somebody who can show you the double haul. Is that probably the best advice?
That's the best way to do it. And if that's not an option and not everybody can afford a private casting lesson, I know I learned it from Mel Krieger. And if you type in Mel Krieger on your computer, how to learn the double haul, you'll find some old Mel Krieger videos.
Oh, you will online. So they're still out there.
Yeah, Mel's been gone a long time, but his videos are still there, and he has a great way of teaching it.
Yeah. Okay, good. So there you go. So the double haul, I love that reminder as well. Well, let's jump into a few kind of just travel tips. I want to talk to you because obviously you've traveled all over the place, both by van and by plane. What would you say out there if somebody, we're getting ready for this spring, summer season traveling? Do you have a few things you're always thinking about, like to make sure you have a good, trip out there with the travel?
Yeah. So if you're going on a big trip, I would say give yourself a buffer day on the way to your destination. So, I'm leaving to the Seychelles tomorrow, and I really don't have to be there until Tuesday because my charter flight is on Wednesday. But that charter flight only goes once a week. If I miss the charter flight, I miss the trip. So I'm leaving Saturday with the plans of getting there on Monday morning. So I'm going to have a full day to just, make sure I got there to catch that charter. But the other reason, I'm dealing with almost a 12-hour time change. So I get a little bit used to that time change, and I don't waste a day on the trip being jet lagged. That's a killer tip right there. The other thing I'll tell you, I mean, I get this question all the time. People send me little messages like, "How do you pack your fly rods?
Right.
What kind of case do you like for carrying them on the plane?" I check my rods.
You do.
You cannot trust TSA people around the world. They all have different opinions, and I missed a flight to Egypt one time. I carried my rods from Jackson Hole all the way to Europe. And then, of course, Air France had another TSA check in there before we boarded our flight to go to Egypt. And they wouldn't let me out with my rods. And so I had to get out of the system, go through, check in again, check my rods anyway. And then I missed my flight. So I didn't get to Egypt till like 8 hours later, and flew into Cairo in the middle of the night by myself, which kind of sucked. So we have the ability to book our flights ourselves now. Just give yourself time between flights. Don't do a real, 40-minute change if you can avoid it. Do a 2 or 3 hour change. Just lay around the airport a little bit, and your luggage will probably make it. 9 times out of 10, more than that, I have good success. Don't want to jinx myself right now.
No.
But
Right. I love that. No, those are awesome. I've heard that one before too about the checking the rods that, there are things, yeah, you could pull it on. There's even, the real packable rods, like the 6 pieces that will fit in a backpack if you wanted to, just to have a backup. But yeah, I think checking the rods, that's a great tip. And then also, right, you have the air tags so you can kind of see where your bag is if you want to kind of track it and all that too.
yeah, you can do it that way. Yeah, that definitely helps if your bag's missing when you get there. But I can see what my bags are doing when I'm flying Delta right there on the Delta app.
Oh, you can. Oh, you
Yeah,
can see it on Delta. Okay.
yeah, you can track your own bags right there. It's funny. I had some luggage lost coming back from Gabon, and it was pretty cool that even after my bag got delivered to the Duluth airport, and then it was driving to my house in Hayward, I could see my bag driving to Hayward.
Oh, you could on the app. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how do they do it? So that's not your tracking device. That's them. How do they?
Yeah, so Delta hands it over to their luggage delivering people.
Oh yeah, they're just all tracked. Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
tracked, right?
So it was awesome. I went to the Delta site, and here's my bag, coming down the 53 to my house. I'm like, oh, sweet. It's going to be here in about 20 minutes.
There you go. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I had a bag lost. Well, it was lost for, again, same thing. If I would have probably had a buffer day, some extra time, it might have been okay. But yeah, I didn't have it for a trip to Lake Erie, and you know what I mean. For a week, I had to borrow stuff, but they ended up giving me a check, right, to buy some stuff. The airline, which is kind of cool. So I don't know if that's another tip they do often, but because they lost my bag, they gave me some free stuff, which was cool. What about just one more travel tip? Like it could be by road or by plane or automobile. What else would you tell somebody?
Have some snacks and water, so I got my empty water bottle in my carry-on for tomorrow, and as soon as I get to the airport, I'll fill that baby up. So I'll have it, on my travels. But also if I'm, traveling in the van, Granny and I fill up our Yeti water bottles every chance we get. And then the energy bars are great. I'm a Kate's bar guy because Kate's were kind of invented in Victor, Idaho.
Oh yeah. Well, now what are those? That's the Kate's bar?
Yep, it's called the Kate's bar.
Okay.
And Kate started because she was a ski racer and, hardcore outdoor sports gal. And she was making these concoctions for herself. And somebody said, you ought to do something. Those things are amazing. And she did. So now they've taken off.
Oh, good.
They even serve them now on Delta.
Oh, wow.
Cool. But yeah, so I always have, I have 6 Kate bars in my backpack for tomorrow because I'm going to be flying for 3 days. And, if I run out of food or feel like I'm hungry and I don't, on a long flight, I can just whip it out and I'm fine. And there's a lot of nutrition in there. I mean, I don't want to live on when I'm not, traveling because you get fat. But when you need some quick protein and some, your body needs it, it provides.
Yeah, I'm looking at the this is so good. I'm glad you mentioned this because I'm a big energy bar guy too, and I get tired. I'm back to the Luna bars right now just because I can't think of another one, but yeah, I mean, yeah, honey, peanut butter, it's all in that. Yeah, all sorts of good stuff in there. So I'm going to be hitting up the Kate's Bar. This is perfect, Jeff. I'm glad you mentioned this. So good. Well, we got a few bonus tips out of you. I guess anything else before we get out of here, just on, you want to leave people with anything you have coming with, your trips, your travel, any of the hosted things you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I would say definitely about a week from now, you want to tune into my website and start checking out the blog, because I will be posting my Seychelles days. And I'm just going to tell you, the Seychelles, I mean, I've seen a lot of the saltwater destinations. It is one of the best.
It is.
And yeah, it's nothing really compares. So there'll be some cool fish up there and some good stories. Definitely check in on that. And then, in April, I'll have my little speaking tour, which will involve some serious grass carp fishing. And, I'll put tips on, how I catch those things on there as well. And then it'll be Wisconsin summer. It's going to be awesome.
Wisconsin summer. Yeah. Wisconsin summer is great because, like you said, the summers are amazing up there, right? You have the cold winters, but are the summers, I guess, depending on how far north you go, you get into some bugs, but are they just pretty much perfect up there?
They're perfect. I mean, we definitely have bugs, and it's the same anywhere. The worse the bugs are, the better the fishing.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm happy to say our bugs are bad, so our fishing is good. But what's cool about where I live is, I'm also only, so I have my smallies, my walleyes, and pike and muskie right here, and I do have some really good trout fishing close to home here. But I'm also only an hour from Lake Superior, so I can go up there and chase some of the really big pike and the big smallies in Chequamegon Bay. And we also have salmon and steelhead in the bay, and we have a pretty good spring steelhead run on the Brule River, which is,
oh yeah,
I'm a half hour from the Brule. I mean, I'm in paradise, loving it.
Yeah, no, it's great. We did an episode recently on fishing Wisconsin with Carl, who is, he runs the fishing show, right? One of the biggest, I guess it's the biggest one in that area, maybe in the Midwest. But yeah, it was really cool because I think he took us around, and then you also have the Driftless, right? Or some of those areas too, right? You talk about the trout.
Driftless is a great spot as well. Amazing trout fishing down there.
Yeah. So I feel like Wisconsin, I think, you made a good choice. Again, it's, you got out of the really spendy stuff and get to the play. And it was funny because I think Mike Schultz, we were doing a call with him and he was talking about the fishing license in Michigan is like $14 or something like that, right? Or one of those, right? It's not very much to even do a fishing like for a day out there.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Which is good. Okay. All right, Jeff. Well, I think we'll leave it there. We'll send everybody out to jeffcurrier.com or jeffcurrier65 on Instagram if they want to follow you.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. All right, Jeff. Well, thanks for all your time again. And definitely we'll be following you on your blog and appreciate all your stories and catching up with you.
Pleasure, Dave. Thank you.
All right. If you get a chance, check in with Jeff. Send him an email, Instagram. Let him know you heard this podcast. Let him know you're supporting his journey to 500 and maybe pick his brain about what other species we missed today. If you get a chance, please subscribe to this podcast or follow the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any app you're on, just click that follow button and you'll get the next podcast right into your inbox. All right, one shout out here before we get out of here. Just want to let you know Wetfly Swing Pro is still going strong. If you're interested, go to wetflyswing.com/pro and I'll give you some information on how to sign up for that. This is the place where we are building our best trips together as a group. And it's a good place to connect with me and follow up on some other information. I appreciate you for stopping by today. Hope you have a great morning. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Or if it's evening, if it's late in the evening, I hope you're having a good evening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.